All right, well, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Megan Saunders, and I am the project coordinator for the Challenge program at the National Security Innovation Network, or NSIN, who is hosting the Catastrophic Communications Challenge Ask Me Anything session today. So just a brief overview of the topics we'll cover. We're going to do just a recap and intro of the prize challenge, and then I'll turn it over to Master Sergeant Shane Van Buskirk with the 194th Communication Squadron to go over in more detail the problem statement and the technical features listed in the solicitation. Following that, we'll turn it into open Q&A. I'll review how to ask questions in this session, and we'll go from there. Just as an overview, the National Security Innovation Network is a program office within the Department of Defense nested in the Defense Innovation Unit. We create opportunities for collaboration between academia, industry, and those who might not traditionally work in defense to drive national security innovation and develop technologies that help our warfighters. Just as a disclaimer, this meeting is being recorded, as you may have heard earlier, and it will be posted on the NSIN YouTube channel. To go over the timeline for this challenge, the solicitation closes on April 7th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you will not be able to submit after that time. You will be notified of finalists on April 19th, and on the week of April 22nd, we will host a pitch rehearsal. The hybrid pitch event will be on May 1st, and the demonstration event at Camp Murray will be on June 5th. We aim to have the winners announced on June 12th. Just to go over what you will be submitting in idea scale, we are asking for a pitch deck that reviews your technology. It should meet these criteria and should be no more than 10 slides, and this includes a cover slide. Some more specifics about the pitch and demo days. So the pitch day will be hybrid. You can join us virtually or in person, and it will be held at the Defense Innovation On-Ramp Hub in Renton, Washington. The time is still to be determined, but it will be on May 1st. The presentation format will be a 5-minute pitch, followed by 5 minutes of questions and answers with the judging panel. The demonstration day is in person, and it will take place at Camp Murray, as mentioned, in Tacoma, Washington. That will be on June 5th, and all finalists selected to attend the demonstrations will be awarded $1,000 for their travel and final preparations. I'd now like to pass it over to Master Sergeant Shane Van Buskirk, to go over in more detail the problem statement and some of the technical criteria.
Hey, thank you so much, Megan. And I appreciate everyone taking the time and coming out, trying to solve a pretty complex issue here. So we need all the biggest brains we can find. So I'm not going to read the slide, obviously, but if you're familiar with the problem statement, we have a lot of airmen that provide a lot of support domestically. And right now we kind of have a tough time getting them all, communicating with all of them in a cohesive manner. So we have solutions that we use now. It's kind of a patchwork. Doesn't fully solve our solution. And a lot of times we're using equipment that we borrow or that we have here that we're kind of dual use kind of stuff. So it doesn't work the best for us. So we're looking for someone to help bring a new innovative technology to solve the problem. So, I mean, we're open obviously to whatever. Some things I want to highlight off the problem statement is that people really depend on the service that we provide. And we cannot provide it effectively if we can't communicate. So it's really of the utmost importance that this technology really allows us to communicate, keep track of our airmen, help the populace. I mean, there's a world of good it would do. So. Is this for me, Megan? Do you want me to talk? I can talk about this.
Yeah, if you would want, or I can go through it. Either works.
I can talk to it. It's fine. So obviously, like the pitch is it's gonna have to be technical. Like we're all technical people. My boss, actually, Senior Master Sergeant Hodges, is on the call, lurking in the background. So he and I and our commander kind of all want a technical solution. Like I said, this is a communication squadron, so we are up to date with what's going on in the industry. So we need it to work, and it has to be feasible, and we'll know like if it's not going to do what we need it to do. It obviously has to be a viable solution for us. So we want to be able to use this. We don't want it to be like a defense-minded type of commercialization thing, and that makes sense for us. And we just want to hear what you guys have to say, in a clear manner. We don't want to have a lot of smoke and mirrors about what it is, because at the end of the day, like the solution is going to potentially like save Washington State citizens, from some domestic disaster, and we don't want to have to like get this product that works but it doesn't work. We just want it to be effective, and obviously it has to be cost effective within the NSIN budget, and like we understand like not everything is going to wrap up perfectly in there. We get that, and obviously it has to align with most of the stuff. We're not incredibly picky on what we end up with. We just know what it has to do, so we're leaving it up to you guys to kind of solve the problem for us, which I feel like is the innovative and the most effective way to solve the problem anyways. So yeah, that's the scoring criteria. Okay, so here's our technical features list. Obviously, it's a lot of word salad, so I don't want to read everything. I just want to highlight the most important parts. So our EOC, Emergency Operations Center, whatever you want to call it, is just a group of our leaders, probably some state, DNR, FEMA, whoever is in the room, Army, potentially, who knows. That EOC has to be able to provide comms to about 30 people within a 1 kilometer radius, because what tends to happen is the communication, the command and control cell, or the people who are in control of managing the forces, the airside forces for an emergency, they could be in one central area, they could be scattered. A lot of times we're co-located with, like, let's say it's a wildfire on tribal land, we're co-located with those tribal leaders, because they're trying to do the same thing. They're trying to protect their citizens. They're trying to allocate their resources, and it doesn't make sense for us to have 2 separate areas. So sometimes we'll have, 5 to 10 people in one area, 10 people in another area, 5 people in another area. It just really depends. So that 1 kilometer radius is kind of encompassing of that EOC footprint. So it really is highly situationally dependent on what it'll be. And then the 5 deployed locations, it says statewide. It just means basically like if you are in an EOC and you need to communicate with someone that's outside of the EOC to report accountability or manage troop movement or whatever needs to happen, we have to have that ability to talk from within that EOC to the outside world. Now, we obviously know, like, depending on terrain, conditions, technology limitations, like there's all kinds of stuff that can make that not work. We just need the ability to try to make it work. So that's kind of where we tie into the architecture side of it, or the actual like meat and potatoes of the technical stuff. So we want to be able to pass voice and data. Obviously 100 megabit is kind of like a goal. We understand like voice and data can be passed on much less than that. We understand that. It just gives the solutioning side of the brain power something to start with. We want to be able to integrate it with new stuff. So we don't want a lockdown type of like architecture where it's like it is what it is and it cannot be changed or modified. It doesn't really work, because once we hit the ground and have to implement the technology, there's a really wide breadth of application. So we don't know what we're going to walk into. A lot of times someone like FEMA has kind of carte blanche over the environment, and we have to mold around them. So it has to be adaptable. A lot of our people are going to be using their commercial laptop. They're going to bring, or their government laptop. So it just has to, we want to focus on using commercial stuff, not government stuff. So it just, obviously, if it's providing a comm backhaul, they can, use VPN or whatever on their government laptop, but that's not really the focus of this. Obviously, the backhaul is what I just mentioned. We want that resilient connectivity because there's a good chance, like when we go in the middle of nowhere, there's going to be very spotty cell coverage. There's not going to be any, obviously, physical infrastructure for us to tie into. So we have to have a good way to like resiliently provide comm even in the middle of nowhere. So we're focusing more on the wireless technology side of it, obviously, for our local deployment, the LAN, wireless, obviously, and then the backhaul is whatever gets figured out. So the sustainable power side of it, it can't be a power hog. So this is just something that's going to run on like a standard wall plug, like nothing crazy. We don't want any adverse power. We don't want to bring a huge like tactical generator with us or anything. Like we understand like a small like 110 like regular generator is understandable, but like obviously not. It's for something for us to figure out. And then we want something to do with like a mesh deployment so we can extend the network. We want it to be extensible past like the initial infrastructure. So we don't want to have to run like wire all the way, you know, to these distant endpoints to be able to provide communication, like a communications nest. We just want to be able to kind of bridge these things together as needed. So that's like the main user and the architecture side. And I know there's a lot of nuance in there that I'm probably not covering. I know that you guys probably have a lot of questions on how we're going to solve this. So we'll just move on and get there when we get there. So the deployability side of it, like, has to be quick. We don't want, you know, an hour is fine, less than an hour is ideal. We don't want this big, complicated, you know, archaic maze of things that we have to set up, because there's a good chance it's not going to be the same person every time. And the chance of, like, you know, we try to build, you know, a really good continuity in our products, but, you know, things happen and it has to just be kind of understandable, rapid deployment, easy to use is kind of the name of the game there. The scalable architecture, it would be really ideal if this product could be extended. We don't want to get, you know, a crate with 3 access points in it and then we set those up and that's all we have, because we never know what we're going to be called to do, and we might not have the equipment on hand. Obviously, like I said, there's a lot of nuance in there, and we completely understand that. And the last two, the APs can't be like indoor APs. They need to be like outdoor access points, just something that's like water resistant. Like, obviously we're not going to put them in the lake or whatever, but it just has to be water resistant so it can sit outside, because usually there's adverse conditions. Like, we're not going to speculate on all the things that can happen, but you guys, if you're from the West Coast, you have an idea of what we kind of deal with out here. It's wet, wildfires are hot, so they just have to be able to kind of sit in an environment. They're going to be co-located with the people for the most part, like serving the environment. They're not going to be like on the top of the mountain, like on fire. So that's not really a concern, but we just want to make sure, like, the limitation is not keep it indoors. Okay, yeah, so this is the desired list, and we know, like, there's a lot that goes into this, so we might be able to tack on some extra stuff on the end. So, like, the redundancy in comm channels is important. Like, we're not saying like 2 main redundant links back to like the distant end, but just something that if there is some redundancy in there, it would be really great for us. Encrypted voice and data would be cool if it's possible, but like I said, it's desired. Some kind of local storage solution, because we predict that when we get out there, people are going to bring the wrong type of equipment for us to work on. So it'd be nice. We can solution that a million different ways, but it's just desired. Obviously, like we said, with the rapid deployability, like user-friendly, not a lot of commercial off-the-shelf switches, servers, APs and stuff. There's no maintenance to do in there. We can't crack them open and fix them anyways, but we just want something that, you know, is from this century and makes sense for people who might not be super comm-versed to use, just for something that they can deploy easily.
Thank you so much, Shane. And evidently, Shane is our primary subject matter expert, and he will be fielding the majority of the questions. Before we get into the Q&A portion, I just want to go over some of the ways that you can ask a question. So feel free to utilize the raise hand button, and we can call on you, and then you can ask your question that way, or feel free to drop it in the chat. I see we already have a few in the chat, so that's great. I will read the questions that are in the chat, and then I'll turn it over to our Washington Air National Guard folks to help answer. Chris Pavel, who is the Washington Air National Guard Innovation Director, will also be helping answer some of the questions today. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. The first question we have from Bea, and excuse me if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, Truesdale is, greetings teammates, question for the team. Master Sergeant Van Buskirk, has the squadron explored the feasibility of Starlink and its adoption at a smaller scale for emergency comms?
Yeah, we've went down that path before. There's limitations on Starlink versus Starshield for the U.S. government. So I don't know if you guys are familiar. I'll just let everybody know now. The cost difference between Starlink and Starshield is very prohibitive. So it's something about 20 times as expensive as Starlink is to Starshield. So obviously there's a range for what it costs, but for us, we can't justify the monthly expense, or even I know that Starlink can be activated as necessary. But it's still, I mean, in our initial costing, it was around $7,000 to $9,000 a month to run it. So Starlink would work, but something like Starlink would work, but we don't have the authority to purchase it in this capacity. So.
Thank you.
Hey, if you don't mind me chiming in, this is Senior Hodges. Starlink was one of the things that we started looking at, but then we realized that we were providing a solution, and we tried to get away from that. We can't directly purchase Starlink. Sergeant Van Buskirk's right about that. Doesn't mean we absolutely can't use it. So that's still on the table as far as we're concerned. We just, again, we started getting into providing a solution, and rather just leave it open, just to kind of create more of an innovative space with that.
Thank you for that clarification. The next question is from Frank Purdy, and it is, do you bring power with you, or should the D equals solution have a power source of its own?
We obviously, if it comes with a power supply, like a generator or something, that would be great. I don't think we wrapped it into the required. So it's just something like, if you think about as a vendor providing a solution, the more complete that can be, the better for us. So, I mean, I don't know if the technology that people are trying to implement lends itself well to like a power generating solution on site or next to or with. So not required, but preferred maybe is the best way to answer that question.
The next question is again from Bea Truesdale. Teammates, should the solution include follow-on sustainment, i.e. how much the squadron is expected to fund annually for upkeep?
So I know that someone's going to answer this, so I'm just going to say, Senior Hodges or Master Sergeant Pavel, you want to take this one to answer it eloquently?
I don't know about eloquently, but I'll answer somewhat of it. So we have, so this is kind of a broad sourcing, what's in the market, right? Current technologies that can solve this problem. From there, I don't know if folks had seen in the announcement, it talked about follow-on with the Washington Air National Guard opportunities. And we're talking about cyber sitters. So if your company is interested in partnering on a direct to phase 2 worth 1.25 million to further develop your product, that's something that Major Green and the Comm Squadron has graciously extended to do. For good technologies that basically have solved all of our problems, we have other use cases that we're also looking to apply those solutions to in other areas. And that's going to have a wide scalability across the entire National Guard. That's why I'm really excited about this specific challenge, because it gets after not only a specific problem, but there's a large scale effort there. We're currently working with California, Texas, Michigan, and a few other National Guard innovation players to talk about commercial communications technologies and work to get those into the palm for future years funding and sustainment.
Great, thank you so much, Chris. And another question from Bea is, teammates, is data storage required or should be accounted for in the solution? That is, what happens to the data after the event?
So for the data storage side, think of it more like we just need a place like to host like data. So not a lot of not user data, like we're not keeping and collecting telemetry or logs or anything like that. It's more like, oh, we want to store a commercial image of Windows 11 and it just wants to hang out there. So we have it. So that could be, that could just be I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Buffalo, like a removable hard drive, a big removable hard drive. Like think of something like that. We're not necessarily saying like there needs to be a server like inside of this rack, monstrosity with a whole bunch of, terabytes of storage. We're not looking for that. So, and any data that is collected or used after the event is obviously going to be disposed of or retained depending on law, regulation, whatever makes sense. But we don't know, like we said, we don't know how much data like is going to have to be compiled, if there's a way that we'll need to keep track of personnel rosters or anything like that. So we're just trying to think of all of the possible use cases of the technology without, solving the problem, obviously. But we just could imagine like, in an emergency environment, there might be a nice place for, LAN within the LAN storage of stuff, whatever that is.
Thank you. The next question is from Cecil Dyer. Are you interested in a technology that is already approved by the U.S. Army on the Cobra OTA for DISA?
I've heard of that before. Have you heard of this, Sergeant Pavel? Do you talk about this?
I've heard about Cobra. We know that there's other solutions out there. We just had a conversation with California National Guard, and they have another solution out there. We're open to any and all solutions that solve this problem, and may the best technology win, kind of a thing, right? This is a challenge, so we want companies to go head to head, show us what they have, and determine what makes the most sense, especially for us specifically here in Washington.
Solid answer.
Thank you. The next question is from Ariel Candelier. I'm very apologetic if I mispronounced that. Is there a specific TRL required on hardware in order to be considered?
No, I don't. What is TRL?
So yeah, technical readiness level that we're looking for is probably, I would say 7. It needs to be demo worthy, so that's why I'm saying 7. But it could be a thought bubble right now, as long as you can get to that point of demonstration by the event.
And if I may, thank you so much, Master Sergeant Chris, for that answer. Is it specific just to wireless and mesh networks? Is there an option for optics and lasers, depending on distance or timestamps?
Shane might actually have a better answer for this one, but I would say any technology, absolutely.
Yeah, like Sergeant Pavel said, the only thing is it needs to fit the need and solve the mission for us. So whatever it is fine, as long as it's redundant, or as long as it's reliable. That's all that we really care about.
Thank you, sir. Thank you both.
And thank you for that follow-on clarification. The next question is again from Bay. Team, have you considered partnership with other military departments? Yep.
But we're trying to get this. We're trying to grow our own solution. So we've obviously talked, and in the innovation cell, Sergeant Pavel does a great job of networking with other units and bases and states and everyone under the sun for the most part. He always wants us to show the great new stuff they're doing. So we obviously have, but this is our challenge, and we want to make we want it to be the 194th Comm Squadron solution.
Great, thank you so much. The next question is from Sujesh Krishnan. Would software solutions to enable data resiliency and security in a contested/challenging environment be of interest? Or would that type of a solution need to be submitted with a hardware/comms partner?
So we're not forecasting any contested environment. Challenging will happen no matter what. There is no easy way to solve this. I know this isn't the point of this question, but it's not like we're setting up communications in a giant field. If we could do that already, we wouldn't be here. So it's hard because no one is really solving the problem really well. So the contested side of it, I mean, data resiliency is always great. And I think if you strive for data resiliency in a contested environment, that means it'll work well for our solution anyways. And as far as the solution being submitted with a comm partner, I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Sujesh, would you like to clarify the second portion of your question?
Yeah. Yeah, hi. I was just getting off mute here.
No
Hey,
problem.
sure.
Yeah, so yeah, my question was just, are software-only solutions of interest to you all, or, for us to be competitive here, does it require, some kind of a hardware play as well, which, we as a software company don't do. And so if we need to submit, we would need to partner with somebody to do that.
Yeah, so we need the whole bowl of spaghetti, right? We need the
Okay.
meatball and the noodles. So yeah, we definitely need the software and the hardware piece. It's obviously they're equally important, obviously. So I don't want to say it's not important because it definitely is. But yeah, you'd have to get with someone that has the medium to ride to hold your software.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Another question from Bea. Team, are you allowing open source architecture for this mobile network?
Yes, so this is going to be completely independent of like a government system, obviously. So like Sergeant Pavel was saying, like this is a call to bring the most innovative solution to our problem. So whatever that is fine. And obviously, like you guys know your technology way better than we do. So if it does what the problem statement says, then we're open to see it.
And another question, team, is your comms challenge or issue already in the CIBER sitter proposal database? Just curious.
Obviously, I'm going to wait for Sergeant Pavel to chime in, but I don't think that it is. But I think that's what they're working towards. So don't quote me. Obviously, he can follow up directly with you if you have any like specific questions about that. If it doesn't get answered within the confines of this AMA.
Yep. So it's yes and no. So we don't have a specific topic in the CyberSitters database for companies to source and apply for. We do have an internal cyber submission tracking this challenge and looking for technologies, but that's like internal on the Air Force side, so others can see. We have an ideation platform that we use in the Air Force. It's in that. And like I said, we're just building kind of like who else is looking for this communications need. And we're already getting multiple states reaching out to us. And like Shane mentioned earlier, we're talking with other DoD components. We don't like to silo our knowledge and what we learn. And so we're talking actively with the Navy in the region. We're also talking with the Army co-located with us. So yeah, any potential communications offering that has wide scalability, we could easily facilitate not just working for us, but working within other units. No promises, but we can definitely have those conversations.
Thank you. The next question is, team, do you require portability or ramp up to machine learning / eventual AI run?
I'm going to probably say no. As you guys are probably painfully aware, the government is not always on the cutting edge of what's happening in the civilian sector. So we're looking for a better than a regular line of sight radio, up to a SATCOM solution. So everything after that, machine learning AI stuff, I'm sure it'll be useful and it's in the software space, but for us, like it's not a requirement.
Thank you. This next question is from Anita Baranowski. Can you please share more about what you currently use? And can you further clarify TRL 7 versus mention of direct to phase 2, which is usually a lower TRL?
So I'll do the first part, and then I'll let Sergeant Pavel do the second part because that probably makes the most sense. So right now we're basically an all LMR type of response. So we have XTS 2500 LMRs, UHF. We have some APX 7000 dual band. Outside of that, we beg, borrow, and steal from DNR and FEMA and whoever else we can to make it work. So as you would expect, there's a lot of sending a runner, which doesn't always work. Like when you're working a wildland firefighter, sometimes the runner part is hard because the fire moves and the information changes hourly. So I don't know, the last fire I worked, the fire line was something like 30 miles around. So like that's not really, sending a runner doesn't work. So yeah, right now it's just LMRs or radio technology, I guess is probably the better way to answer that.
Yep. And on the TRL 7 comment, that was more for if we're going to demo the technology, this challenge that's part of this challenge is you need to demo the technology. For a direct to phase 2, understand that that's still in the R&D. You know, TRL 7 is not a completed product. If you have a good architecture, a good software solution, whatever the offering is to solve this challenge, it may not all the way be fully fleshed out in some areas. And so that's what we would basically put together Cleanse for, is to further develop those areas of your product, get it to a TRL 9 state in that direct to phase 2. Hopefully that answered your question.
And there was a follow-up to this question. Is there a way to get your squadron's current tech environment so that we can effectively interface our solution?
So think of it this way. Right now, this solution is like I kind of said earlier, provided as a wholly separate from our like DODIN, like the our network. So the solution is a blank slate right now. So you don't have to worry about any interoperability issues. Like I said in the last question, or we have LMRs. We already have a solution to implement those. The technology that we're asking for in this challenge does not have to interface with that at all. Like we'll make that work if we can. If we can't, we already kind of have a way to implement that. Just obviously it doesn't fix our problem. That's why we're here.
Thank you. Another question from Cecil. Are we talking about a P25 conventional environment?
We can be, sure. So kind of we already, like I said in the previous few questions, the LMR technology we use now is good. We're good at that. The problem is that it's not us using it. It's the technology is limited. You know, if anyone on here knows about LMR stuff, it's line of sight. So obviously to get over a mountain, you got to have something at the top to get to the other side, or something in the air to bounce it off of. So the radio side, conventional side of it is fine, but we're looking for a little bit of a different solution.
Will we be? This is Cecil. Let me ask the question another way.
Sure.
Will we be using your P25 devices to interface with?
No, they don't have to.
But would it be handy?
I'm sure it would be handy, but we don't want to bake that in as a requirement. But obviously, if that's what you bring to the table, then it's probably going to be better, you know, if we can use what we have.
Can I ask what you currently have?
Yeah, we have all Motorola architecture. So we have old XTS 2500s. We're supposed to be getting some new XTS 4500s, I think. And we have APX 7000s now. We have some GTR 8000 repeaters and some duplexers that we use but don't use. And that's basically it from an LMR perspective. I can send you more like comprehensive data if that's what you're looking for.
Yes, please.
Okay. Maybe I'll just include that in the proposal pitch so everyone can see it, not so just so he can see it.
Well, yeah, no, I understand. The reason for the question is we brought P25 radio solutions to the network with what we recently had approved with our travel hub. So
yeah,
the travel hub itself will allow you to communicate anywhere you're standing in the world with satellite backhaul, cellular backhaul, Wi-Fi backhaul, mesh backhaul. We built it to an open architecture standard so that and we tested it against Motorola environment and the KMF while we're working with the Secret Service. So it's a proven solution.
Okay, yeah, for
it's
sure.
Flexible.
Yeah, I said, we have Motorola now. We're not getting obviously the XTS 2500s are old. They're way out of life. So I think they're even out of service, but we're going to get some new stuff soon, but that's not a part of this conversation, because if we get it, great. If we don't get it, great. So it just, but like I said, I'll post more about that.
Okay. How do we communicate with this team between now and the time that we do the next thing? Do we have access to you, or
Yes, I'll jump in and answer that. There is a Q&A forum on IdeaScale, which is the website where you will eventually submit a proposal to this challenge. So when you find the campaign page, it should be linked right in the top portion, and you can ask any question there, and we'll review it and have it answered within the week.
Okay, thank you.
Great. The next question is from Jim Burke. He says, disaster response often starts at a local level. is it important to be able to make your solution available to other first responders, such as local/regional and public and private responders, to ensure situational awareness and centralized C2?
So local, tribal, all the FEMA regional responder people, they all bring a package solution. So we're not required to interface with them, and they're not required to interface with us. I know it seems like redundant because we all show up with our own like comm nodes, and it would be in the perfect environment. We all show up with pieces and they all fit together, and then we all talk. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. Normally, we do some, like rubbing on the surface level and make everything talk. Usually that means like hand jamming frequencies and radios, or whatever, or they give us a couple of their radios, we give us some of their radios. It's usually a messy solution. So the interoperability part of it would be great. Is it required? No, but obviously, the solution is going to dictate what we can do. So we're going to pick the thing that solves our problem the best. And our problem wasn't interfacing with local or regional public-private people. It was just taking care of our airmen first. But if it can, great. If it doesn't, whatever.
I'll add to that. On the business end of things, if there's a good dual use technology out there that they're using and for their needs that we can then purchase as well, that's going to help your case, especially if we're trying for a cyber phase 2, for example. That just ups our chances. We don't want to be the sole customer for sure. Long term, that helps out with sustainment and avoid vendor lock type of situations that get kind of expensive.
Thank you. The next question is, team, if the solution uses a drone mesh network, do you require the solution provider come with the necessary, come with the necessary FAA approvals before implementation?
I would say probably that's a good idea. Obviously, we don't dabble too much in the realm of the FAA. Obviously, like we don't have planes here, so any solution that you have, I know that there's like customer level airspace up to a certain level, and I'm sure you guys, the technology you're thinking about, I'm sure you've already kind of thought through that, because you're not going to develop a drone networking solution with zero consideration to what's above you. So I would say, like, if that is a solution, definitely be on the way to getting it like good to go, because to give us the solution and have us figure it out would be kind of unbalanced from a like technical, like from a solution standpoint. I think it would be kind of unbalanced for us to do that.
Thank you. The next question is, regarding LMR, does the solution need to deconflict and provide non-interference to the network? Copy on the standalone.
So regarding whether solution need to deconflict and provide non-interference to the network, I'll just try to answer this the best I can. So the LMR side of the piece, like we know you can do data over UHF now, and I imagine there's a lot of great stuff that goes on in that space. So there's going to be a lot of other key players in the area, like I said, DNR, state, tribal police, FEMA, whoever is around. So it has to be like operable to the point where it can shimmy to the left or the right, or make way for those, because people like FEMA kind of have the right of way. Like, we're not going to say we're the Washington National Guard, like, get out of the way, or we're transmitting on this frequency. That's not how it works, because they already have the nationwide frequency allocation to do stuff like this. So we have to yield to them. So we'll try to deconflict. Like, I'm a spectrum guy by trade, radio guy by trade. So I kind of know the space a little bit, and I know enough to get out of the way of the people that have the right to transmit. So we obviously want the solution to fold into that. We don't want to be contesting anyone. We don't want to argue with anyone. We can't say like we can only transmit on 510.005 or whatever. We're not going to do that. So obviously anything that's LMR radio based has to kind of have that ability to slide left or right.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any more messages in the chat, so feel free to drop more if you have any, or raise your hand. In the meantime, there are a few questions that were asked on our Q&A forum that we have not yet touched on, so I'm going to go ahead and ask those now. One of the questions being, how does the proposed solution integrate with existing emergency management infrastructure? Details on the interoperability with current systems can demonstrate thoughtfulness in ensuring the solution enhances rather than complicates emergency response efforts.
Yeah, so unfortunately, like I said earlier, everyone kind of has their own buggy and horse to fix this problem, because they have a unique requirement set that we might not have, or they have extended capabilities that we don't do, or we do stuff they don't do. So the interoperability part of it is great. It would be nice, it would be really great if we could just show up to some disaster and just turn on the equipment, and we could talk to everybody in the area, in the EOC or in the local area, the disaster response area. That would be ideal. We know that that's not going to happen. We strive for the interoperability. We strive for the data sharing part of it, if we can help our local partners or they can help us. But from my personal experience and the experience of many airmen that go and help, they are much more focused on meeting their mission needs, not necessarily servicing us to help serve their mission needs, if that makes any sense. Like, we have to bring it, they bring it, we bring it, and then we try to make them talk in the middle.
Great, thank you. One other that I think would be good to touch on for this group are what regulatory and compliance considerations must be addressed. Understanding the legal and regulatory environment, especially regarding frequency usage and data security, is crucial for a viable solution.
So, like I said earlier, the 194th Communication Squadron, the 194th Wing, as a whole, we don't have authority to transmit on UHF, VHF, whatever it is, outside of this base. So when we go somewhere, there is already a cut sheet. I'll try to use the formal language. There's already a radio frequency allocation assigned for that FEMA region. So let's say our region, the guys show up and they bring the truck and they say, hey, these are all the frequencies that we can transmit on. So we're only going to work within those, or we have to look for more frequencies from other people that are, and like I said, in a disaster, like, everything is upside down and backwards. Obviously there's some flex there, and we understand that. And if we're out in the middle of nowhere, like, we understand, like, there's a good chance we're not going to step on anything. We do a tertiary glance to make sure, but the rules and regulations we follow, obviously the FCC, the FAA, if it's a drone. But for us, like, it's a no. Oh, go ahead. No, I think you said something on accident. Yeah. So for us, the regulatory side of it is the federal regulatory side, nothing from, like, in-house.
And then a follow-on question in the chat.
Can I add to that one? Obviously R&D, this is the R&D space. So if you have a product that you're developing that may not meet all of the compliance issues, I would say that what Shane mentioned is something that is kind of a must be met requirement, but it's something like an ITAR requirement where you have to kind of play with different components to determine the feasibility of your product. That's okay in the R&D space, but we would like to see a roadmap from whatever the current components are that may not meet compliance for the government standards, and then what your get well date is. Just if we're looking at long-term sustainment and you want a customer, we have to meet those requirements.
Thank you for the clarification, Master Sergeant Pavel. A follow-up question in the chat is, will you make frequencies for use during the demonstration? If so, what is the frequency?
Yeah, we'll deconflict that for you. We're going to probably work, obviously we're not going to work a whole frequency allocation request for the challenge, because we don't know what you guys are going to bring and what scope we need to, but we can work with our installation and Joint Base Lewis McChord to kind of get you something to work off of. But like I said, we just have to we need a little warning to coordinate that, like, not forever, but probably at least 60 days to get that figured out.
Great, thank you. One other question is, what are the projected costs and maintenance requirements for deploying and operating this solution? Insight into the economic aspects of the solution can support its feasibility and sustainability as a long-term tool for disaster response.
You want to take this one, Sergeant Babel?
Sure. Yeah, the government budget question, right? That's the thing with the DoD, right? We don't usually get paid on time, and we don't really know what our budget is annually. Our power does come from partnering, though. So if that's what I'm saying, if our solution, whatever the solution pops out to be, partnering with the Army, partnering with the Navy, partnering with other state Air National Guard units to send that demand signal up to our decision makers, can directly affect the outcome of what the long-term sustainment piece looks like. I know that's a very vague answer. We don't have one for you, but that just gives you kind of the go-do tasker of find something with a broad applicability that solves this issue. And I think we kind of wrote the challenge statement to be as broad as possible to kind of capture as many things as possible. So if you can do that, we're on track.
Thank you. I want to open it up one more time for any questions. Feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat. I'll give it, some time. Okay, here's another question. Team, for funding follow-up, can you provide the Starlink costs that were cost prohibitive? At least it will be top end.
So like I said, the Starlink side of it, like Senior Master and Hodges said earlier, is feasible. Like Starlink is feasible, the cost is feasible. It's just the legality of it is what the prohibitive part is. And obviously the Star Shield side of the equation, the legality is fine, but the cost is prohibitive. So we're kind of stopped either way. Now, I mean, Sergeant Pavel, feel free to chime in, or Senior Master and Hodges, feel free. If the solution comes with that and that needs to be supported, I don't know how that question is answered exactly, but I mean, I don't know if you want to answer that, Sergeant Pavel.
Yeah, that's a difficult acquisitions question. I might have to punt and think about that one a little bit. It's my understanding that the military can no longer buy Starlink as it sits. They have to buy Star Shield through the Space Force contract that's set up. As far as how that wraps into a solution, I would have to do more research on that.
Yeah, so the dollar number, I think is maybe what you're looking for. So the dollar amount on Starlink, let's say it's sub $300 roughly. The cost of Star Shield is $7,000. So like something like $300 a month for us, like for our internal budgeting, is like, that's not a huge consideration, but obviously $7,000 a month is something that we can't, like there's no reality where that works out for us. So, not us personally,
Understand.
maybe someone else in the government, but not us.
Understand.
So a follow-up question is, if able to share the details on Starlink / Star Shield, would appreciate it. Thanks much.
I think I actually have the cut sheet of costing that I can make available. I don't know. I think it's publicly available too, but I'm not sure. I'd have to double check my email.
Thank you. Another question from Art Selendong is, how many finalists do you expect to have demo?
I don't know if five. So yeah, we're gonna.
I believe it was 5, wasn't it, on the original announcement? We were.
I think it was 5. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just going to depend on obviously the feasibility. That might change, but I would estimate 5 to come out and actually do the demo. Down selected to 3 finalists.
Yes, and it was 5 listed in the solicitation call as well.
So let me ask another question. What's the $75,000 prize for?
It's for the solution itself. I'm pretty sure. Megan, maybe you want to talk to that a little bit more.
Of course, yes. So to clarify, the total prize pool for this challenge is $75,000. We have awarded and allocated, I believe, $1,000 to companies who will be traveling to the pitch. So the top performing company or companies, however, they decide to allocate the prize, will receive the remainder of the $70,000.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I want to add to that as well. One of the benefits to the NSIN challenge and all the NSIN programs really is the ability for us to potentially do rapid acquisitions. Typically in the military, when an issue comes up, we have to build this huge requirement documentation, send it off. Hopefully, those that make the decisions on where the money goes picks it, right, and it gets funded in the 3 to 5 year presidential palm cycle. That's not really accelerating change or lose, right, in the Air Force. That's not getting us the things that we need in a rapid fashion. Through this challenge program, the top 3 finalists are considered to have met competitive contracting requirements. What that allows us to do is to potentially sole source with vendors that have commercial ready products. So I would just kind of throw that out there as like, that's really the big prize here. We understand the dollar amount may not be that much, but the ability for us to go direct with you, work with you on a solution and mature that product, and you get our direct feedback is we'll say priceless.
What, if I may, what OTA vehicle are you planning on using?
Yeah. As far as the prize pool?
No, in the documentation, it said it could go out for an OTA. Which OTA?
I think that was that's just overview, where we could take the challenge from here. After the award of the prize pool to the top 3 performing teams, there, like I said, with the directed phase 2s, there's a potential there. With OTAs, I know NSIN has some programs, and there may be some other options with other entities out there that use OTAs, but we don't have anything specifically lined up.
Thank you.
Another question in the chat is, which service would sponsor the D2P2?
You just answered that, right, Sergeant Pavel?
Yep, that would be the 194th Communications Squadron.
Thank you. Another question in the chat, is there a pool or an incentive for small businesses or native-owned businesses?
I think it's an NSIN question, honestly.
Yes, I can answer that. So there's one applicant pool. We have listed the eligibility criteria in the solicitation. So as long as the submitter meets those criteria, everyone will be considered from the same applicant pool. I want to give another call to see if there are any more questions. Continue to put them in the chat if you have any, or feel free to raise your hand. I'll give it, some time.
Yeah, we really appreciate, go ahead. Sorry, never mind. Just trying to fill the dead space.
Frank Purdy, go ahead, please.
Yeah, how long will it be before this video and recording is on your YouTube site?
Within a week, likely faster than that. It just all depends on the time that our communications team will have to edit and get this posted for us, as they so graciously do.
And as a follow-up, what's the due date for the submissions?
The due date is April 7th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions at this time? Well, hearing none, I just wanted to wrap up and thank you all for attending this session, and thank our members of the 194th Communications Squadron for being here and providing such excellent answers. As we had mentioned earlier, you can continue to ask questions throughout this challenge process on the IdeaScale Q&A forum. That is also where you will submit your application on the campaign page in IdeaScale. I will also add the challenges email specific to the challenge program at NSIN. If you are encountering any issues using the platform, things of that nature, please feel free to email challenges@nsin.mil, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you all so much and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.